Backstage at the Grand Apollo Theater, the air shimmered with tension and excitement. The walls vibrated faintly from the echo of music and footsteps, a mix of nerves and dreams colliding in the narrow corridors. Contestants rushed past, sequins glittering under harsh fluorescent lights, makeup artists whispering encouragements, parents offering last-minute hugs that trembled more than they reassured. But in the farthest corner, beneath a buzzing exit sign, sat a tiny girl in a wheelchair, perfectly still. Her name was Lily Matthews, and though her legs would never carry her across a stage, her voice soon would. Her small hands rested in her lap, fingers intertwined as if she were holding her own courage. A soft hum escaped her lips, the beginning notes of Angel's Lullaby, the song she had sung to herself every night since she was old enough to remember her mother's voice. The melody floated like a prayer, unnoticed by the rush around her except by one person. "Breathe, sweetheart," murmured Mrs. Chen, her caretaker and neighbor from the apartment building. The elderly woman's wrinkled hands gently adjusted the ribbon tied around Lily's braid. "You don't have to be brave for the world tonight. Just sing for your mama." Lily smiled faintly, though her voice shook when she answered. "She's watching, right?" Mrs. Chen nodded. She wouldn't miss it. Across town, under the harsh white lights of County Hospital, Sarah Mitchell leaned against a supply cart, her phone propped between boxes of gauze. Her scrubs were wrinkled, her hair tied in a hasty bun, but her eyes were alight with pride. Every beep of the monitor beside her made her flinch. She couldn't afford to get caught watching, but she couldn't look away either. On that tiny screen, her daughter waited to perform, her face pale but determined. Backstage, the stage manager's voice cut through the noise. "Number 47, Lily Matthews." Lily's breath caught. Mrs. Chen squeezed her shoulder, then knelt so their eyes met. "You ready?" The girl nodded. Her small frame straightened with a quiet determination that made her look older, wiser, like she carried an entire world inside her. "I have to be," she whispered. "Mama needs this. I need this." Mrs. Chen's throat tightened as she wheeled Lily toward the stage entrance. The sounds of the crowd swelled. Clapping, laughter, the murmur of thousands waiting for the next act. As Lily reached the curtain, the stage lights cast golden halos through the folds of fabric. She paused, taking in the glow with wide, trembling eyes. "Go show them who you are," Mrs. Chen whispered, her voice breaking. The curtain parted. The noise of the audience softened into an expectant hush. The vast theater stretched before her like an ocean of light and shadow. 2,000 strangers stared as one fragile child in a wheelchair rolled into the spotlight. Somewhere high above cameras whirred, millions at home would soon see her. At the judges' table, 3 faces looked up from their notes. Victoria Stone, regal and silver-haired, leaned forward with a gentle smile. Raymond Cole, the ex-pop star, nodded with encouragement. And beside them sat Marcus Blackwell, sharp-suited, impossibly composed, the face that graced magazine covers and investment portfolios. His expression, until now detached, softened in curiosity as he looked up at the child before him. Victoria leaned toward her microphone. "Hello, sweetheart. What's your name?" Lily's voice was small but clear. "Lily Matthews. And how old are you?" "I'm 7. Raymond smiled warmly. "What are you going to perform for us today, Lily?" Her fingers gripped the wheelchair's arms, knuckles white. "I'm going to sing Angel's Lullaby. It's the song my mama used to sing to me when I was little." There was a murmur from the crowd, the kind that follows unexpected innocence. Then something happened. Marcus's pen slipped from his hand, clattering onto the table. The sound seemed to echo too loudly in his ears. Angel's Lullaby. The words struck him like a bullet. The air left his lungs. That song, that voice. 7 years vanished in a heartbeat, replaced by the memory of a hospital room, a woman's soft singing and a baby's tiny twisted legs beneath a blanket. He froze, staring at the little girl before him. The same hazel eyes, the same dimple in her left cheek. The name Lily, no, it couldn't be. "Whenever you're ready, sweetheart," Victoria said kindly. The lights dimmed. A single beam fell upon the small wheelchair at center stage. Lily took a trembling breath and closed her eyes. The first note rose from her like something holy, fragile yet impossibly strong. It filled the theater, silencing everything. The whispering crowd, the restless cameras, even the cynical hearts in the room. Marcus's chest constricted. He couldn't move, couldn't breathe. His world collapsed into that single pure voice, a voice he had tried to forget. but that now reached across 7 years and tore open every wound he'd buried. The audience leaned forward, enchanted, unaware that one man at the judge's table wasn't just listening. He was remembering. His heart, once made of steel and ambition, stuttered painfully in his chest as recognition flickered, terrifying, undeniable, and absolute. The ghost of 7 years ago, Marcus Blackwell's penthouse glowed like a fortress above Chicago's midnight skyline. Glass walls reflected the flicker of city lights, and somewhere below, sirens wailed like distant memories refusing to die. Inside, Marcus sat in a leather chair with his head in his hands, a tumbler of whiskey untouched on the table beside him. The applause from the theater still echoed in his skull, the sound of 2,000 people rising for the little girl whose voice had pierced straight through his armor. He could still see her. The way her hazel eyes glimmered beneath the stage lights, the way her small fingers trembled on the microphone before she found her courage. And that song, Angel's Lullaby, it hadn't just been music. It had been a message. From the past. From a ghost he'd buried 7 years ago. He rose abruptly, pacing toward the window, his reflection fractured against the city's glow. "No," he whispered to the glass. "It's impossible." But the lie was already crumbling. Her name, her face, that song. It couldn't be coincidence. He stumbled toward the desk, fumbling for his phone. His assistant had sent him a copy of the contestant roster earlier. He scrolled past dozens of names until he found it. 47, Lily Matthews. Age 7, his throat tightened. Matthews, Sarah's maiden name. He gripped the edge of the desk so hard the veins in his hands bulged. His breath came in ragged bursts. No. God, no. A memory tore through him, so vivid it left him trembling. The sterile smell of antiseptic. The cry of a newborn. Sarah's face, pale with exhaustion but radiant with love. "She's perfect," she had whispered that night, cradling their baby despite the twisted little legs beneath the blanket. "We'll figure this out together, Marcus. We'll find a way." But he hadn't looked at perfection. He'd looked at failure, at fear. "I can't do this," he had said, backing away from the hospital bed. "I'm not ready. I'm sorry." Sarah's voice had broken into fury and heartbreak all at once. "You're her father, Marcus. You don't get to run just because it's hard." But he had. He'd turned and walked out before she could say another word. He hadn't looked back, not once. He'd changed his number, sent a lawyer, buried the memory under 7 years of ambition and billion-dollar deals. He told himself he'd done the practical thing, the responsible thing. But standing here now, trembling in the dark, he realized what he'd actually done. He'd traded his soul for success. Marcus sank back into his chair, shaking. The weight of it pressed on his chest until he thought he might actually suffocate. He'd spent 7 years building an empire. Blackwell Capital, International Holdings, luxury towers bearing his name. His face had been on the cover of Forbes, labeled the Young Titan. And yet tonight, for the first time in years, he felt small, pathetic. His intercom buzzed, the voice of his assistant breaking the silence. "Mr. Blackwell, your dinner with the DeLuca investors is in 20 minutes. He stared blankly at the speaker, then at the untouched whiskey. "Cancel it," he muttered. "Sir?" "I said cancel it. Everything for the week." He swallowed hard. "I have a family emergency." The words hung in the air, foreign and bitter on his tongue. Family. What right did he have to use that word? He stood restless, unable to sit still as guilt gnawed at him. He needed to know more. Needed to see what had become of Sarah and Lily. He opened his laptop, hands trembling as he typed her name, Sarah Mitchell, Chicago. Dozens of results appeared, hospital directories, social media fragments, local community listings. Finally, he found her, a staff photo on the county hospital website. Her hair shorter now, dark circles under her eyes, a nurse's badge clipped to her uniform. She looked older, tired, thinner, but the fire in her eyes was still there. He enlarged the image until the pixels blurred. "Sarah," he whispered, voice breaking. "You're still here." He kept scrolling. A GoFundMe page appeared under her name. "Help save Lily's life," he clicked it. His stomach dropped. "Our daughter was born with severe spina bifida. She's paralyzed from the waist down and needs surgery within the next 6 months to stop her condition from worsening. The surgery costs over $300,000. I've been working 2 jobs to keep her treatments going, but we're running out of time. Please help us save her." The page had been up for over a year. The donations $3,475 out of $300,000. The last update. We've been denied again for medical funding. Please pray for us. Marcus's vision blurred. His finger hovered over the photo attached. A picture of Sarah holding Lily on her lap. Lily's small body framed by a wheelchair too big for her. Her smile radiant despite everything. Sarah's eyes were red but proud. He covered his mouth, a sob catching in his throat. He had missed it all. Her first steps that never came, her birthdays, her battles, her courage. And all this time, while he bought yachts and art in silence, they had been fighting to survive. He called his security chief. "Derek," he said, his voice raw. "I need information. Full background. Sarah Mitchell and Lily Matthews. Every detail. Health records, living conditions, everything. And keep it quiet." "Yes, sir." "How far back?" 7 years, Marcus whispered. "Back to the day I left." When he hung up, the apartment was silent again except for the hum of the city below. The sound felt mocking, alive with the noise of people who hadn't destroyed their families. He walked to the piano in the corner, a piece he'd bought years ago but never learned to play. His fingers touched the keys, uncertain, remembering the sound of Angel's lullaby from the stage. He pressed one note. It trembled, dissonant in the vast emptiness. He imagined Sarah singing it in that hospital room, her voice soft, her hope stubborn. He imagined Lily singing it on that stage, alone and fragile yet powerful enough to make a billionaire cry. He pressed another key, softer this time, and whispered to the empty air, "I'm sorry." The next morning, Marcus woke to a knock on his door. Derek stood in the doorway with a tablet and eyes heavy with pity. "She's been through hell, sir," Derek said quietly, handing him the report. "Sarah works nights at County Hospital, weekends cleaning offices. Rent's overdue. Lily's been hospitalized 17 times this year alone. Infections, complications, she's deteriorating." Marcus's hands shook as he read. Every line felt like a blade. "What about the surgery?" he asked, his voice trembling. $500,000 total, including rehab. The specialist, Dr. Elizabeth Hartman at Northwestern, refused to operate without full payment up front. Marcus swallowed. He could write that check right now. One wire transfer and Lily would be safe. But would Sarah accept it? From him? The man who walked out on her when she needed him most? Derek hesitated. "Sir, if I may." "What do you want to do?" Marcus looked out the window again. The city seemed to stretch endlessly, a monument to his greed. "What I should have done 7 years ago," he said finally. "Save my daughter's life." Derek nodded slowly. "And Sarah?" Marcus's eyes hardened. "She doesn't have to know it's me. Not yet." For a long time he stood there after Derek left, staring at his reflection in the window. The face of a billionaire looked back at him, chiseled, confident, admired. But beneath the surface he saw what he truly was. A coward. And somewhere across the city, a little girl he'd abandoned was running out of time. He turned away from the glass, grabbed his phone, and whispered to the darkness, "Not again. Not this time." Then he began to plan. The mother's desperation rain fell in thin silver sheets across the south side of Chicago, tracing crooked paths down cracked windows and pooling in the potholes of forgotten streets. The night hummed with sirens and exhaustion. In a dim apartment on the 4th floor of a crumbling brick building, Sarah Mitchell fought to stay awake. Her hands trembled as she peeled off her blue hospital gloves, skin raw from hours of scrubbing and disinfectant. It was 2:13 a.m. Her shift had ended an hour ago, but she had stayed late because one of the interns had called in sick. She couldn't afford to lose overtime pay. The apartment was silent except for the faint buzz of the refrigerator and the slow ticking of a clock that always ran 5 minutes late. Sarah slipped off her shoes by the door, her body aching from 12 hours on her feet. Her uniform smelled faintly of bleach and coffee. The moment she closed the door, the tears came. Quiet, unannounced, like an old companion returning without permission. She wiped them away quickly. There was no time to cry. She had to check on Lily. The door to their bedroom creaked as she pushed it open. The single window glowed with the faint amber of a street lamp outside. Lily lay sleeping, curled beneath a thin blanket, her small body swallowed by the oversized hospital bed they'd found secondhand from a charity. Mrs. Chen, their elderly neighbor and part-time caretaker, dozed in a chair beside the bed, knitting needles resting loosely in her lap. Sarah smiled weakly, brushing a stray gray hair from Mrs. Chen's forehead. "You should have gone home, Mrs. C," The older woman stirred. I was waiting for you, dear. Her voice was gentle but weary. She was restless earlier. Nightmares again. But she finally settled. Sarah's eyes softened. She sat on the edge of Lily's bed, her fingers brushing her daughter's cheek. Even in sleep, the little girl's face held tension, pain etched into innocence. Her breaths were shallow, uneven. The sight always broke Sarah in quiet, invisible ways. I saw her performance, Mrs. Chen said suddenly, eyes brightening. The whole theater was crying. The judges, too. You should have seen it, Sarah, that girl. She sang like she wasn't human, like an angel come down for one song. Sarah's throat tightened. I know. I watched the live stream during my break. The way she looked under those lights. She laughed softly, wiping her eyes. She was perfect. Perfect, Mrs. Chen echoed, then smiled faintly. You know, there was something strange about that third judge. The rich one, Blackwell. He cried the whole time. Cried like a man who'd lost something he could never get back. Sarah's hand froze mid-motion. She turned slowly, her breath catching. Marcus Blackwell. Mrs. Chen nodded. That's the one. Handsome devil, but he looked like a ghost when she sang. Sarah looked away quickly, pretending to adjust the blanket. Her heart was suddenly pounding too fast. That name, Blackwell, it stirred something dark and buried. She tried to brush it off, but the image refused to fade. The camera panning to his face, his gray eyes glistening, his mouth trembling as Lily's song reached its peak. He had looked familiar, not just in the way celebrities sometimes did. Something deeper, something that lived in the corner of her memory like a shadow she didn't want to turn toward. No, she told herself firmly. It couldn't be. The Marcus she'd known was gone. He'd left her in a hospital room with a newborn and a mountain of fear. He wouldn't be sitting behind a judge's table with $1 billion smile and tears for a child he didn't even know existed. She shook her head hard and whispered, Don't be stupid, Sarah. Mrs. Chen looked up. What was that, dear? Nothing, Sarah said quickly. Just tired. The older woman nodded, gathering her shawl. You get some rest. I'll come by tomorrow before the semifinals. That little girl's going to win it all, you'll see. When Mrs. Chen left, the apartment fell silent again. Sarah reached for the old laptop on the nightstand. Its screen cracked at one corner. She opened her bank account. Negative balance. Then the medical invoices, unpaid, overdue. Finally, the email from Dr. Hartman's office. We regret to inform you that the hospital board has denied financial assistance for Lily's procedure. Her vision blurred. She pressed a trembling hand to her mouth to muffle the sob. She couldn't let Lily hear her break. Then, her phone buzzed. A new text. Unknown number. Miss Mitchell, my name is Derek Morrison. I represent a private philanthropist who saw your daughter's performance tonight. He wishes to help with her medical expenses. Sarah stared at the message, her pulse quickening. A scam, she whispered. It has to be. Her thumbs hovered over the screen before typing. Who is this philanthropist? Why would they help us? The reply came almost instantly. He prefers to remain anonymous. He was deeply moved by Lily's courage. No strings attached. He only wants to help. Sarah's heart pounded. Too good to be true. It had to be. She typed again. If this is some sick scam, I'll report you. My daughter's sick. Don't play games with her life. This is not a game, Miss Mitchell. Please meet me tomorrow at 3 p.m. at Riverside Cafe. I'll bring legal documentation. You may verify it before agreeing to anything. The message ended there. No emojis, no false sweetness. Just cold professionalism. She sat for a long time staring at the glowing screen. Her instincts screamed, don't go. But then she turned her head toward the bed where Lily slept, her chest rising unevenly. She remembered the doctor's words. Without surgery, her spinal cord will deteriorate further. She may not make it past 8. 8. That was months away. Sarah closed her eyes and whispered a prayer she wasn't sure anyone would hear. Then she texted back a single word. Okay, across the city, in a glass-walled office 20 floors above the river, Marcus Blackwell watched the same text appear on Derek's phone. Relief loosened the knot in his chest, though guilt quickly replaced it. Good, he said quietly. She agreed. Derek hesitated. Boss, are you sure this is the way? Pretending to be someone else? She's going to find out eventually. Marcus's gaze drifted to the skyline. If she knows it's me, she'll never accept the money. She'll think I'm trying to buy redemption. Are you? Derek asked softly. Marcus didn't answer. He turned instead to the window, watching the river cut through the city like a dark scar. 7 years ago, he'd walked away from responsibility. Now, with every dollar he'd earned, every empire he'd built, he'd only been walking deeper into loneliness. This isn't about redemption, he said finally.
It's about saving her life.
That's all that matters. But even as he said it, he wasn't sure he believed himself. The next afternoon, rain turned to sunlight over Chicago as Sarah Mitchell sat at a corner table in Riverside Cafe. Her hands gripped a chipped mug of coffee that had gone cold hours ago. Every time the door opened, her stomach clenched. At precisely 3 ESA, a man in a charcoal suit entered, mid-50s, composed, carrying a leather briefcase. His eyes found hers immediately. "Miss Mitchell," he said, offering his hand. "I'm Derek Morrison." She nodded warily. "You have 5 minutes to convince me this isn't a scam." He smiled faintly, setting a folder on the table. "Understood." Inside were documents, bank transfer authorizations, notarized medical trust papers, and a letter from Northwestern Memorial Hospital confirming an upcoming surgical fund in Lily Matthews's name. Sarah's hands trembled as she scanned the numbers. $500,000. "It's real," Derek said softly. "The funds have already been transferred. The surgery can be scheduled immediately." Her lips parted. She couldn't speak. The air seemed to vanish from the cafe. "Who?" she whispered finally. "Who would do this for us?" Derek closed the folder gently. "He wishes to remain anonymous. But he asked me to tell you this. Every child deserves a chance to live without pain." Tears streamed down her cheeks. Her body shook with quiet, uncontrollable sobs. "Please thank him," she managed to say. "Tell him he just saved my daughter's life." Derek nodded, though his throat felt tight. "I will." Outside, parked half a block away, Marcus Blackwell watched through the tinted window of his car. As Sarah cried in relief, his own eyes filled too. He had saved his daughter's life, but he still couldn't save himself. And deep down he knew this secret would not stay buried for long. The anonymous savior, the morning sun crawled reluctantly over Chicago, washing the skyline in pale gold. The city was waking up, coffee brewing, horns blaring, strangers brushing past one another on crowded sidewalks. But in one tiny apartment on the south side, time had stopped. Sarah Mitchell sat frozen on the edge of her couch, the phone still in her hand. She had hung up minutes ago, but her mind refused to process what had just happened. The money was real. The lawyer had confirmed it. The medical trust existed. $500,000. Wired, legal, untouchable, meant only for her daughter's surgery. Her gaze drifted to the small form sleeping in the next room. Lily, her little warrior, lay nestled beneath her pink blanket, unaware that her life had just been saved. For the first time in years, Sarah let herself exhale. It wasn't a sob or a sigh. It was something deeper, something almost forgotten. Relief. She pressed both hands to her mouth, trembling as laughter and tears spilled out at once. "Thank you," she whispered to the air. "Whoever you are, thank you." Across town, in an office of glass and steel that pierced the morning haze, Marcus Blackwell stared down at the same city from a very different height. The skyline gleamed beneath him, but he couldn't feel its beauty. His reflection in the window looked hollow. The face of a man used to control, now undone by something as fragile as love. "Are they verified?" he asked, his voice barely steady. Derek Morrison nodded, standing behind him with a file. "Yes, sir. Miss Mitchell called the law firm. She knows the funds are legitimate. She's already contacted Dr. Hartman's office. They'll schedule the surgery within the week." Marcus exhaled shakily and leaned both hands on the window ledge. "Good," Derek hesitated. "You should have seen her face when I told her, sir." She broke down. She couldn't believe it was real. A long silence. Then Marcus whispered, "I don't deserve to see her face." Derek closed the folder. "Maybe not, but you did the right thing." Marcus turned slowly, the light catching in his gray eyes. "The right thing?" He gave a humorless laugh. "The right thing would have been not to walk out in the first place." Derek didn't reply. He didn't need to. Everyone in Marcus's circle had read the story in whispers. The one secret the billionaire never let the media find. The young founder who abandoned his family for ambition, who traded fatherhood for Forbes covers. And now, years later, The ghost had come home to collect its debt. That night, Marcus didn't go home. He stayed in his office, pacing the marble floors like a prisoner. His phone buzzed with emails from investors, journalists, charity boards, all the noise of a life that used to matter. Now it all felt meaningless. He poured himself a drink, stared at the amber liquid trembling in the glass, then set it down untouched. The taste of whiskey reminded him too much of guilt. His laptop glowed in the dim light. On the screen was an image, the freeze frame from Lily's audition. The moment she began to sing, eyes closed, haloed by light, her face looked angelic, unbreakable. But to Marcus it was unbearable. He enlarged the photo, his hand tracing her outline on the screen. "You have her eyes," he whispered. "You have everything I threw away." He thought about calling Sarah, about hearing her voice again. He imagined her answer, sharp, furious, shaking. "You don't get to come back now." He set the phone down. His hands were trembling. He'd spent 7 years building empires, crushing competitors, rewriting the rules of business, but he had no idea how to rebuild a heart. Meanwhile, Sarah was doing the one thing she hadn't done in years, sleeping peacefully. When she woke, the sun was already high, spilling through the thin curtains like an old friend. For a few blissful seconds, she forgot about the debt notices, the medical bills, the fear. Then she remembered, and this time the memory didn't hurt. "Mom?" Lily's small voice came from the next room. "You're crying again," Sarah laughed, wiping her cheeks.
Happy tears, baby.
"Just happy ones." Lily smiled sleepily, rubbing her eyes. "Did we win?" Sarah's throat closed. "Not yet. But someone just made sure we don't have to lose." 2 days later, they met with Dr. Elizabeth Hartman, the top pediatric neurosurgeon in the state. The woman's office was lined with framed photos of children, some in wheelchairs, others walking or dancing post-surgery. "Hope lived here." Dr. Hartman explained the procedure gently, her tone kind but firm. "It won't be easy," she said. "Recovery will take months. But with her strength, I believe Lily can live pain-free." Sarah nodded, tears glistening. "Thank you, doctor. Thank you for giving us a chance." Dr. Hartman smiled. "Don't thank me. Thank whoever believed in your daughter enough to make this possible." For the briefest moment, Sarah hesitated. She wanted to know. She needed to know. Who had done this? Why them? Why now? But she pushed the question down. Gratitude was safer than curiosity. Still, when she walked Lily out of the hospital, she couldn't help glancing over her shoulder, half expecting to see someone watching from afar. She wasn't wrong. From the tinted window of a sleek black car across the street, Marcus sat silently, sunglasses hiding his red-rimmed eyes. He watched as Sarah pushed Lily's wheelchair toward the car, waiting to take them home. Lily was laughing and laughing, and for a moment the world stood still. He wanted to run to them, to kneel beside his daughter and tell her everything, that he was her father, that he was sorry, that he would never leave again. But fear anchored him to the seat. Derek, in the passenger seat, finally spoke. "You could tell her now, sir. She deserves to know who saved her." Marcus shook his head. "No, she deserves a father worth saving." He turned away as the car pulled from the curb. But the image lingered, Sarah's hand resting protectively on Lily's shoulder, the same way she had held their newborn 7 years ago. The following week, Lily's story exploded online. The video of her audition had hit 20 million views. News outlets called her the angel in the wheelchair. Morning shows replayed her song on loop. Brands and agencies reached out with offers. Sarah's phone wouldn't stop ringing. Interviews, sponsorships, fundraisers. Everyone wanted a piece of their miracle story, but fame came with shadows. One night, Sarah received an email. No name, no address, and just a single line. "Do you really know who's paying for your daughter's surgery?" She froze. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. Was it a scam, a threat? A cruel joke? She closed the laptop, heart pounding. She didn't tell Lily. She didn't even tell Mrs. Chen. But something inside her whispered that this miracle might not be as simple as it seemed. At the same time, Marcus began to unravel under the weight of secrecy. Each time Lily appeared on television, his chest tightened. He watched every interview, memorized every smile. He had never realized how much of Sarah he saw in her, the same stubborn spark, the same gentle defiance. One night, he paused on a clip where the host asked Lily, "What will you do if you win the show?" Lily smiled shyly. I'll buy my mom a house. One where the roof doesn't leak when it rains. Marcus's hand shook as he reached for the remote. He switched off the screen and sat in the dark. All the money in the world. And he couldn't give her the one thing she truly wanted. The pressure built like a storm. The secret donor story began circulating in the tabloids. Anonymous benefactor. Mystery millionaire. Whispers of manipulation. Marcus's PR team begged him to distance himself from the show before anyone connected the dots. But he couldn't. He couldn't walk away, and not this time. He attended every rehearsal, every live show, every sleepless night spent pretending to be nothing more than a judge admiring a talented child. But with each performance, the truth pressed harder against the glass between them. He was living a lie wrapped in good intentions. And fate, patient and cruel, was already reaching for the curtain rope, ready to pull it open. The rising star, the roar of applause thundered through the Grand Apollo Theater like an ocean crashing against cliffs. The semi-final night of the National Star Quest had arrived, and every seat was filled. Cameras swung from cranes like curious eyes, capturing every shimmer, every tear. Lights burned so bright that the stage seemed to float in heaven itself. But behind that blinding perfection, Lily Matthews sat trembling in her wheelchair, her heart pounding faster than the drumbeat echoing from the stage. Her hands were icy despite the heat of the lights. Mrs. Chen knelt beside her, fussing with the hem of her blue satin dress, the same one Sarah had borrowed from the thrift store down the street. Don't be nervous, sweetheart, Mrs. Chen said, voice quivering with pride. The whole country's waiting to hear you sing again. Lily smiled faintly, her lips dry. I'm not nervous about singing, she whispered. I'm nervous about him. She glanced through the narrow gap in the curtain. There he was, Marcus Blackwell, seated at the center of the judges' table, immaculately dressed, unreadable as stone. The billionaire with a face the world adored and a secret heart full of chaos. To Lily, he wasn't just another judge. He was the one who had cried, the one who had looked at her like she wasn't a contestant, but something he'd lost long ago. Up in the judges' section, Marcus's pulse raced beneath the crisp white collar of his shirt. On the surface, he looked calm, the flawless mask of success. But beneath that mask, a war raged. It had been 3 weeks since the night he secretly saved his daughter's life. 3 weeks since he'd sat in his car and watched Sarah cry tears of gratitude for a gift she'd never know came from him. Now, as Lily prepared to sing again, the consequences of that secret were closing in. The media had begun to question the anonymous donation. An investigative journalist had even approached his PR team with suspiciously specific questions. His team had deflected for now, but it was only a matter of time before the truth clawed its way out of the dark. And yet, he couldn't stay away. He could have watched from home, safe behind tinted glass and silence. But he needed to be here, to see her, to hear her voice again, that voice that had broken through 7 years of ice and taught him what love actually sounded like. He told himself it was professional interest, that he was just fulfilling his role as a judge, but his body betrayed him every time her name appeared on the stage list. His heart quickened, his throat tightened, his palms sweated like a nervous father in a delivery room. Contestant number 12, the announcer's voice boomed. Please welcome back Lily Matthews. The audience erupted. Children waved handmade signs with glitter letters. Strangers shouted her name.
The angel in the wheelchair.
She had become an overnight phenomenon. Trending hashtags, news interviews, even a short documentary. As she rolled onto the stage under the golden spotlight, the noise faded to a hush. Every camera zoomed in on her fragile form, her determined smile, the halo of her auburn hair. Marcus leaned forward without realizing it, his hands clasped tightly on the desk. Hello, Lily, said Victoria Stone, the Broadway legend. It's good to see you again, sweetheart. How are you feeling tonight? I'm feeling blessed, Lily said softly, her voice steady but full of emotion. I want to dedicate this song to everyone who helped me believe in miracles. Marcus felt his breath catch. His eyes blurred for a moment and he blinked hard, trying to compose himself. Whenever you're ready, Victoria said kindly. The lights dimmed. A soft piano began, and Lily sang. It wasn't Angel's lullaby this time. It was a song she'd written herself, Pieces of the Sky. Mama said the world is wide, but my wings are hard to find. Still, I'll climb with broken feathers just to touch the light this time. The melody rose like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. The theater became a cathedral. Her voice trembled with pain and hope, weaving through every heart in the room. Marcus's world tilted. He could barely breathe. She was everything he'd ever wanted to be, brave, pure, unstoppable. His vision blurred with tears as her voice cracked slightly on the last verse, but she pushed through, smiling through the pain. When the song ended, the silence that followed was unbearable. Then the crowd exploded. People leapt to their feet, clapping, shouting, weeping. The sound was thunder, a hurricane of love. Victoria slammed her golden buzzer. Raymond followed, pounding his fist on the table in excitement, but Marcus didn't move. His hand hovered over the buzzer. His entire body shook. He wanted to press it, to tell her that she had just changed the world again. But his mind screamed that pressing it would make his secret obvious. He'd already broken once during her audition. The internet had seen his tears, the rumors had begun. If he showed that emotion again, people would start asking why. Marcus. Victoria's voice broke through his paralysis. You look like you've seen a ghost. He blinked, forcing a smile. Just moved, he said hoarsely, his voice cracking. Then with trembling fingers he pressed the buzzer. The golden lights erupted again, showering the stage. Confetti rained down. Lily covered her mouth, crying with disbelief. For one raw, infinite second, their eyes met across the distance. And something passed between them. Something neither the audience nor the cameras could name. A recognition that lived in the blood. After the show, Marcus escaped through the back hallway, ignoring reporters calling his name. He couldn't face their questions. Not yet. He walked down the dim corridor, his chest tight, his breath ragged. The walls seemed to close in, echoing with applause and his own guilt. Then a small voice froze him in place. Mr. Blackwell? He turned. There she was, Lily, sitting in her wheelchair, still wearing her blue dress. Her eyes were wide, curious, innocent. Marcus's heart nearly stopped. Oh, she said shyly. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to scare you. He forced a laugh that sounded like pain. You didn't, sweetheart. You just surprised me. She tilted her head. You cried again, he blinked. What? On stage, she said simply. When I sang. You were crying again. Mama says when people cry it means they feel something real. He swallowed hard. Your mama sounds very wise. She is, Lily said proudly. Then hesitating, she added, You looked like you knew my song. Like you'd heard it before. Marcus froze. His mind flashed back to a hospital room, a lullaby, a woman's trembling voice singing the same notes to a baby wrapped in blankets. He knelt down slowly so they were eye level. His voice was barely a whisper. Maybe I did. Lily smiled, that same gentle, disarming smile that once belonged to Sarah. Well, thank you for listening again. Then her caretaker arrived, calling her name. Lily waved as she was wheeled away, leaving Marcus kneeling alone in the hallway, trembling like a man who had seen his own ghost walk past him. That night, the headlines flooded in. The angel returns, Lily Matthews steals America's heart again. Billionaire judge's emotional reaction goes viral. What's his connection to the girl? The internet burned with speculation. Conspiracy threads exploded across social media. Some called it a publicity stunt. Others whispered about secret paternity, about hidden pasts. In her apartment, Sarah saw the stories too. Her hands shook as she scrolled through the comments. He cried again. He looks just like her. Could he be? Her chest tightened. That old unease, the one she'd buried beneath gratitude and exhaustion, began to stir again. She zoomed in on a photo from the show. Marcus's tear-streaked face staring up at the stage. Her thumb trembled as she traced his features on the screen. No, it couldn't be. But deep down, under all her denial, something inside her whispered the unthinkable truth. Across town, Marcus sat alone in his penthouse watching the same broadcast replay. Lily's voice filled the room again. He covered his face with both hands, shaking. I can't hide forever, he whispered to himself. She'll find out. Sarah will find out. And as if the universe had been waiting for that confession, his phone buzzed on the table beside him. One message, from a number he hadn't seen in 7 years. Sarah Mitchell, we need to talk. Marcus's breath caught in his throat. The past had finally come knocking, and this time, there would be no running. The secret unraveling, the Chicago skyline glittered under a storm that hadn't yet broken. Low clouds pressed down, heavy and electric, turning every window into a mirror of gray. In the penthouse above the city, Marcus Blackwell stood by the floor-to-ceiling glass, phone clutched in his trembling hand. The screen still glowed. Sarah Mitchell. We need to talk. For a long moment he couldn't move. Those 4 words carried 7 years of silence, 7 years of cowardice and guilt. When he finally drew a breath, it sounded like the air had been punched out of him. His intercom buzzed. Mr. Blackwell, came Derek's voice, uneasy. You should see this. Marcus turned. Derek entered holding a tablet. One swipe, and the nightmare unfolded. Breaking news. The Guardian Post. Judge Marcus Blackwell identified as anonymous donor funding contestant Lily Matthews's $500K surgery. Underneath, photos flashed. Marcus leaving the studio. Sarah at the hospital. Lily smiling in her wheelchair. The headline pulsed like a wound. Who leaked it? Marcus asked, his voice barely human. Could be a hospital clerk or a bank contact. The trail was too clean. They pieced it together. Derek hesitated. It's everywhere, boss. A billionaire guardian angel is trending. Half the world thinks you're a saint. The other half says you cheated the contest. Marcus pressed his palms to his temples. Get my PR team on damage control. But keep Lily out of it. She doesn't deserve... Sir? Derek interrupted softly. They've already reached out to Sarah for comment. Marcus froze. When? 10 minutes ago. Lightning flared outside, bleaching the room white. He could already picture Sarah's face as she read the article. The disbelief, the fury. Set up a car, he said. Now. On the other side of the city, Sarah Mitchell sat at her kitchen table. The newspaper spread before her like a confession. The photograph of Marcus stared back at her. Sharp suit, calm eyes, the face of a man she once loved and had vowed never to forgive. Her coffee had gone cold. Her hands shook so badly she spilled it when she reached for her phone. Mrs. Chen hovered in the doorway. Sarah, you should eat something. Sarah looked up slowly. He paid for it. The surgery. Every dollar. He's been watching us this whole time. Mrs. Chen's eyes softened. Maybe he just wanted to help. No, Sarah whispered. He wanted to erase his guilt. She rose abruptly, the chair scraping across the floor. He left us to die, Mrs. Chen. He doesn't get to buy his way back into her life. Mrs. Chen hesitated. What will you do? Sarah grabbed her coat. I'm going to the studio. The studio corridors hummed with chaos. Reporters flooding the lobby, security shouting orders, cameras flashing like lightning. Lily, waiting for rehearsal, sat in a dressing room watching the noise on a muted TV. The scrolling headline showed her name beside Marcus's. She frowned, puzzled. Mrs. Chen, why are they showing Mr. Blackwell's picture with mine? Mrs. Chen tried to smile. It's just the news being noisy again, sweetheart. Don't worry. But Lily had already seen the caption. Mystery donor revealed. Judge Marcus Blackwell secretly funds contestant's operation. Her small hands twisted in her lap. Why would he do that? He doesn't even know me? Before Mrs. Chen could answer, the door burst open. Sarah swept in, hair damp from rain, eyes blazing with fury. Where is he? She demanded. Sarah, Mrs. Chen started. Where? The door to the judge's lounge opened across the hall. Marcus stepped out, flanked by 2 anxious producers. The moment his eyes met Sarah's, everything around them blurred. She crossed the hall in 3 strides and slapped him before anyone could move. The crack echoed off the walls, silencing the room. That's for walking out on us, she said, voice shaking. For disappearing. For letting her grow up thinking her father was dead. Marcus didn't raise a hand to defend himself. I know. And this? She said, holding up the newspaper. What is this supposed to be? Charity? Penance? Publicity? No, he said quietly. It was the only way I could help without hurting you. Hurting me? She laughed bitterly. You did that 7 years ago. I thought I was protecting you, he said. I was young, scared. Stop, she cut in. You were selfish. Don't call it fear. Call it what it was. He swallowed hard, every word of hers landing like a blade. You're right, he whispered. I was a coward. They stood there, 2 ghosts of a love long dead, breathing the same storm. Then a small, trembling voice spoke from behind them. Mom? Sarah turned. Lily sat in her wheelchair at the doorway, eyes wide and wet. Why are you yelling? Sarah froze. Sweetheart, go back inside. It's okay. But Lily's gaze drifted from her mother to Marcus. You're the man from TV. Marcus's lips parted, but no sound came. They said you paid for my surgery, she whispered. Is it true? The silence was unbearable. Cameras were clicking somewhere down the hall, the press sensing a story worth blood. Marcus took a step forward. Lily, Sarah's voice snapped like glass. Don't, but Lily's eyes stayed locked on his. Why, she asked. Why would you do that for me? His voice broke when he spoke. Because I should have been there from the start. Understanding flickered in her eyes, faint but growing. You mean... Her breath hitched. Marcus nodded once, unable to say the word. Sarah's hand flew to her mouth. No, don't tell her like this. But it was too late. Lily's face crumpled as the truth sank in. You're my dad? The world seemed to stop breathing. Marcus knelt down, his eyes level with hers, tears streaking down his cheeks. Yes, he whispered, I am. And I'm sorry, Lily. I'm so sorry for everything. Lily looked between him and her mother, her lips trembling. Mama, he's my dad? Sarah could barely speak. He was once. The child's eyes filled, confusion and heartbreak colliding. Then why did you leave me? Marcus's voice cracked. Because I was stupid. Because I was afraid. I thought I wasn't strong enough to be your father. But I was wrong. Tears streamed down Lily's cheeks. You missed my birthdays. I know. You missed when I learned to sing. I know. You missed when it hurt the most. His throat closed around a sob. I know, baby. And I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make it right. Sarah turned away, shaking. Reporters had begun whispering behind the glass door, cameras flashing through the windows like lightning. The producers shouted for security, but the damage was done. The secret was out. Not in a headline, not in a press release, but in the raw human way truth always escapes. Through tears. Hours later, the theater was empty. The show had been suspended pending investigation. Sarah sat alone in the dressing room, head in her hands. The rain outside finally broke, hammering the windows. Lily slept on the couch, exhausted from crying. The door creaked. Marcus stepped inside, soaked from the storm, his expression hollow. I didn't mean for her to find out like that. Sarah didn't look up. But she had to eventually. The truth always finds the people it's meant to destroy. He flinched. I only wanted to save her. You did, she said softly. But you also broke her heart again. For a moment, neither spoke. The rain filled the silence. Marcus finally said, If you tell me to walk away now, I will. But if there's even a sliver of a chance that she could forgive me... Sarah lifted her head. Her eyes were tired, but not cruel. Forgiveness isn't something you earn in a week, Marcus. It's something you prove every day you don't run away again. He nodded slowly. Then I'll start there. He turned to leave, but her voice stopped him. Marcus, he looked back. She looks just like you when she's scared. He swallowed hard. Then maybe one day she'll look like me when she's brave. Sarah said nothing. But her silence wasn't hatred anymore. It was something quieter, sadder, almost like hope. Outside, thunder rolled over the city, washing away the noise of gossip and scandal. Inside, in a small theater that had seen dreams rise and die, three hearts began the long, painful work of remembering what love sounded like when it wasn't broken. The lullaby of forgiveness. The weeks after the confrontation passed in a blur of headlines and silence. The talent show halted its broadcast. Producers hid behind statements about ethics investigations, and gossip hosts tore apart the story of the billionaire judge and the paralyzed girl who turned out to be his daughter. For once, Marcus Blackwell didn't try to control the narrative. He stayed home, away from cameras, the empire he'd built humming on without him. Each morning he scrolled through the news not to protect his image but to see Lily's face, in charity pieces, in fan tributes, in petitions to let her perform again. The world loved her with a purity he'd never deserved, but inside that apartment on the south side, the love that mattered most had gone quiet. Lily's surgery had been successful. The doctors were cautious with their words. Stabilized spine, partial nerve response. Time will tell. But for Sarah, just hearing Lily laugh again felt like a miracle. Still, something had changed. Since learning the truth, Lily had barely spoken Marcus's name. The first days after the reveal, she'd ask the same questions in a whisper. Why did he leave?
Did he not want me?
Sarah's answers had been clumsy, too gentle and too hard at once. So when a letter arrived, hand-delivered by Marcus's driver and left unopened for days on the counter, Sarah finally slid it into Lily's lap. The envelope was cream-colored, the handwriting uncertain. My dearest Lily, I don't deserve to call myself your father. I don't deserve the chance to write this. But I'm learning that love isn't about deserving. It's about showing up even when you're terrified. When I saw you on that stage, I didn't see your wheelchair. I saw your strength. You sang the song your mother once sang to you, the same one she sang the night you were born. I ran from that room because I thought I was too small for the life waiting for me. You proved how wrong I was. If you'll let me, I'd like to meet you somewhere quiet. Not as the judge from television, not as the man who sent money, just as the one who wants to listen to your song one more time. Your father. Marcus. Lily read it 3 times, her small fingers tracing the uneven lines. Then she looked at her mother. Can I go? Sarah hesitated. Her instincts screamed to protect, but her eyes softened. If you want to, I'll take you. They met at Grant Park under the fading light of late autumn. The air smelled of rain and roasted chestnuts from the vendor carts. Marcus stood waiting by the fountain, wearing no suit, no entourage, just a gray sweater, hands twisting nervously in his pockets. When he saw them approaching, his breath caught. Lily's hair was braided, her cheeks pale from recovery, but her smile, that small, cautious smile, cracked something inside him. He knelt as she rolled closer. You look stronger. I'm getting there, she said softly. Dr. Hartman says I might even walk someday. That's because you don't know how to quit, he said, voice thick. For a long time, they just stared at each other. Sarah stood back, arms folded, watching but not interfering. The city moved around them. Joggers, pigeons, the hum of traffic. And yet it felt as if the world had narrowed to 3 people learning how to breathe again. I used to wonder, Lily said at last, if I had a dad out there somewhere. I thought maybe he was a soldier or an astronaut. She smiled faintly. I didn't think he'd be on TV. Marcus laughed brokenly. Neither did I. Her eyes searched his. Were you really scared of me? He shut his eyes. No, sweetheart. I was scared of myself. Scared I wasn't enough to give you what you deserved. Mom says you can't fix the past, Lily said quietly. He nodded. She's right. But maybe we can build something new on top of it. Lily was silent for a moment, then held out her hand. Okay, but you have to promise not to disappear again. He took her hand in both of his eyes glistening. Never again. The national finale came 3 months later. The network had begged Lily to return, framing her comeback as a performance of hope. Sarah hesitated. But Lily wanted to sing, not for judges. Not for money, but to close the circle. Backstage, Marcus waited with them, no longer behind the judges' table. He'd resigned from the show, trading spectacle for something humbler. A seat in the audience near the front, hands clasped like a prayer. The lights dimmed. A hush fell, and Lily wheeled to the center of the stage dressed in white, her hair loose under the soft glow. This song, she said into the microphone, is for my mom, for never giving up on me, and for my dad, for finally coming home. The first notes of Angel's lullaby rose through the theater. Her voice, once fragile, was stronger now, a little huskier from the surgery, but truer. Each lyric carried 7 years of silence, one apology, one forgiveness. Marcus wept openly, not from guilt this time, but from awe. Sarah watched from the wings, her hand pressed to her heart. When the final note faded, the audience rose as one. No golden buzzer, no lights. Just applause. Real, raw, endless. Lily smiled through tears and blew a kiss toward the front row. Marcus caught it with both hands and held it to his chest. After the show, they stood together on the empty stage. The confetti was gone. The cameras were off. Just 3 people and a faint echo of music in the rafters. Sarah looked at Marcus. You kept your promise. I'll keep it every day, he said. I can't erase what I did, Sarah, but I can make sure she never feels abandoned again. She studied him for a long time, then nodded. That's all she ever needed. Lily yawned, leaning against her mother. Can we go home now? Marcus smiled. Yeah, kiddo. Let's go home. Outside, the night was cool and alive. Streetlights shimmered on puddles from a passing drizzle. The city, once a place of guilt, looked almost forgiving. They walked together, Sarah pushing Lily's chair, Marcus beside them, his hand resting lightly on the backrest. For the first time there was no audience, no secret, no lie, only a family finding its rhythm again, one quiet step at a time. Behind them, through the theater's closing doors, a janitor hummed softly, the last verse of Angel's lullaby. The words drifted into the night. Though the world may bring you pain, you're my angel through the rain. And as the melody faded, Marcus looked down at his daughter's face and finally felt forgiven. End.